Hi, my name is Jesus, and today's film is Nesting Dolls. So I'm super excited to talk about Nesting Dolls. The reason why I want to talk about it is because it feels like nobody really knows about this film, and it's not really on anyone's radar, and I don't understand why, because it's so good, it's so interesting, it's so dark, gripping, intense. I feel like everyone should be talking about it. So the film itself is about three sorority sisters who, I believe for spring break, go to one of their grandparents' cabin and spend the week there trying to bond. It's very like lofty white woman realness moments, right? They're like on a lake, they're on a boat, they're just like living their best lives, drinking rosé, etc. until something goes wrong. I'm not going to spoil anything, but when this something goes wrong, all of these underlying tensions between the characters start to arise, and you maybe start to see some of their true colors that are just lying underneath these relationships and these niceties. And I think at its core, the film is really about kind of these female relationships and friendships, maybe how women are socialized to behave in certain ways towards each other on the outside and maybe differently on the inside. I think the actions of the film really kind of stem from these underlying relationships that the characters have between each other. I do wonder what this film might have looked like with a female director. Another of the major themes is the theme of self-preservation, and what I find so interesting is that it manifests itself in different ways for different characters. One character, it's very literal, self-preservation meaning staying alive, the will to live, surviving. For another character, it's maybe more self-preservation in terms of mental well-being, having to process kind of like a traumatic event, having to deal with maybe guilt. The last character's kind of sense of self-preservation is really about status, whether that means social status, power, wealth, etc. The events of the film and maybe the discovery of the events of the film is a direct threat to this character's kind of concept of status, concept of self-worth and power, intrinsically tied to this character's identity. This character, is willing to go to great lengths to protect that. These different kind of manifestations of self-preservation are really pit against each other within the film, right? There's a lot of tension between the characters because one character's physical self-preservation, like surviving, is at odds with another character's self-preservation in terms of like their social status and power. So these dynamics are really at odds with each other, and it just makes for such an interesting conflict. The film is also extremely unnerving in many ways. There's a lot of shots where it's almost what you don't see that is very suspenseful, and you're just not sure what is going to happen. And there are moments that almost reminded me of Martyrs. Certainly not to that like intensity in any way, shape, or form, but there are moments where it almost became too much, almost became unbearable to watch just because of how tense it was, psychologically like horrible it was. The imagery, the cinematography are absolutely amazing. There's just such an amazing eye for detail in this film. There's a lot of motifs that come up throughout the film and are kind of shot in different ways, and there's a real sense of defamiliarization. I cannot speak. Defamiliarization. So like these focuses on an object that makes them very unfamiliar to us and strange, almost like repeating a word so many times that it becomes weird to say it and like it loses its meaning, whatever. Again, the eye for detail is amazing. There's certain shots that are just very interestingly done, certain angles that are just very weird, and they are a little bit unsettling. You're curious about, you have to take a second to figure out, okay, what am I looking at? I think the ending will be pretty polarizing to folks, just because it was strange. When I first watched it, I didn't really like the ending. I thought it was weird. I thought it didn't, I don't know if it's that it didn't make sense, but it just felt so off-putting given maybe the rest of the film. But as I thought about it more, it felt pretty fitting, and ultimately it really in a way equalizes all of the characters. Certainly there's a very clear villain, that there's no doubt about that. But there's an interesting maybe commentary on each of these characters being kind of on the same plane in a way. I will say it ends in a very interesting place where you will be thinking about it for sure. It's very thought-provoking, and I was honestly blown away. I went into it with absolutely no expectations. I highly recommend that you do the same if you're gonna watch it. There's two trailers that I found. The longer one is very detailed and it does give away a lot of the plot. I would not recommend watching that one. There's another one that is more kind of like vignette moments. I think it's more of a teaser. That one really gives you a sense of the feel of the film without giving any of the plot away. Way better to go into without knowing specific plot points. Ultimately, I'd say I'd have to give this film a 9 out of 10. Most things about it just absolutely work. The tension within the relationships, the actress's intensity is so effective. This kind of sense of different types of self-preservation and how they interact and conflict with each other was really effective for me as well. There's a way of looking at it through like this lens of social class and like power and wealth, and thinking about the lanes that you know people will go to maintain their social status. This isn't ever explicitly explored much in the film. There are a few times that the character mentions, it kind of delves into it a little bit. It's not explored in any explicit way. But it's something that I definitely picked up on. The imagery, again, amazing focus on motifs, amazing eye for detail, and the cinematography is amazing. There's some beautiful shots that were just mesmerizing to look at, and some of them were disturbing to look at, and just maybe were confusing to look at, but everything about it was just so interesting. So again, I highly recommend Nesting Dolls. If you're looking for a really gripping, intense psychological thriller, this is definitely one to look for. Not many people are talking about it, so please watch it. It's very interesting and I really enjoyed it. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. Obviously this is a very new YouTube channel, so if you did like my video, please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you did watch the film, let me know what you thought in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions about this film, even if, or maybe even especially if you disagreed. I'd love to know why. And then also if you have any recommendations for films for me to watch or review, I would love to hear those as well. Thank you all, goodbye.